All right, this is Chapter 1, Lesson 8, Roots. So, the first thing I have is a blank blank of a number is one of its two equal factors. In those two blanks, you're going to write square root. So a square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. Numbers such as 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25 are called blank blank. In those two blanks, you're going to write perfect square. So numbers such as 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25 are called perfect squares because they are squares of integers. So basically what I can do is 4 can be written as 2 squared, which equals 4. So if I take the square root of 4, I get 2. It's a whole number. Okay? Square roots. So in words, a square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. If x squared equal y, then x is the square root of y. Okay? So then in example, 5 squared equals 25, so 5 is the square root of 25. So it's just like when you're using addition and subtraction. The opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. So the opposite of squaring something is taking the square root of it. Every positive number has blank, a positive and negative square root. In that blank, you're going to write both. So every positive number has both a positive and negative square root. In most real-world situations, only the positive or blank square root is considered. In that blank, you're going to write principal. In most real-world situations, only the positive or principal square root is considered. A blank blank square root is used to indicate the principal square root. So, in these two blanks, you're going to write radical sign. A radical sign, which is what this symbol is used to indicate the principal square root. So, if n squared equals a, then n equals plus or minus the square root of a. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples. So the first example I have is 1, the square root of 64, so I have to find each square root. So I can ask myself, what times what gives me 64? And it has to be the same factor. So if I do a factor tree for 64, I know that 8 times 8 is 64. Well, square root, because they're the same factor, the square root of 64 gives me 8. 8 squared gives me 64, so the square root of 64 is 8. Okay? For number 2, I have the square root plus or minus the square root of 1.21. So I need to find I need to find the square root of 1.21, so I can put that in my calculator. When I do that, I get plus or minus 1.1. For number 3, it says negative square root 25/36. So when I'm dealing with fractions and I have square roots, I'm going to take the square root of the numerator and I'm going to take the square root of the denominator. Okay? So the square root of 25 gives me 5, and the square root of 36 is 6. So negative square root 25/36 gives me negative, because that negative just follows over 5/6. For number 4, I have the square root of negative 16. So there actually is no real solution to this. It actually deals with imaginary numbers. We're not going to get into that. You actually won't get into that until later math classes. So this actually has no real solution. So the square root of negative 16, so if the negative is inside the square root or the radical symbol, it means that there is no real number. Okay, no real solution. So number 4 has no real solution. All right, so there are a couple of try problems below. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try them out, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers together. All right, now that you've had a chance to try out the try problems, let's go over the answers together. So I have letter A. Letter A says the square root of 9/16. So I'm going to take the square root of 9, and I know 3 squared equals 9, and 4 squared equals 16. So my answer is going to be 3/4. For letter B, I have plus or minus the square root of 0.81. Well, I know that 81 is a perfect square. That's 9 squared equals 81. So I know that this is going to be 0.9, so plus or minus 0.9. Letter C says negative square root of 49. Well, 49, 7 squared equals 49. So for C, I'm going to have negative 7. That negative is on the outside of this radical sign, so that's why I can write it as a negative. For letter D, the square root of negative of 100. This one has no real solution, since the negative is on the inside of the square root. For letter E, it says 289 equals a squared, so I want to go ahead and square root both sides. So I'm going to take the square root of 289 and the square root of a squared. Square root of 289 is 17, so this will be plus or minus 17. For letter F, I have m squared equals 0.09. So again, I take the square root of m squared, which m squared is really m times m. This is why I can do this. So that means because I have 2, I can take 1 out, so I'm left with m. And the square root of 0.9 is 0.3, plus or minus. Okay, you can double check that. If you do 0.3 times 0.3, gives me 0.09. You can always double check, go back and double check. All right, for letter G, I have y squared equals 4/25. So again, I'm going to square root both sides. Y squared becomes y. Square root of 4, this is really like saying square root of 4 over the square root of 25. Square root of 4 is 2, square root of 25 is 5. So y equals 2/5. All right, we can continue with roots by talking about cube roots. So those are ones with the 3 exponent. So cube roots, in words, a blank blank of a number is one of its 3 equal factors. In that blank, you're going to write cube roots. So a cube root of a number is one of its 3 equal factors. If x cubed equals y, then x is a cube root of y. So numbers such as 8, 27, and 64 are blank blank because they are the cubes of integers. In that blank, those 2 blanks, you're going to write perfect cubes. Okay. So 8 is a cube root, and we denote this as this with the little 3 there, because 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed, equals 8. Okay. So 8 equals 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed. 27 is 3 times 3 times 3, or 3 cubed. 64 is 4 times 4 times 4, or 4 cubed. Okay? So if n cubed equals a, then n equals the cube root of a. You can use this relationship to solve equations that involve cubes. All right, so we can take a look at a couple of examples. Number 6, I have the cube root of 125. Well, this is really like saying 5 cubed, I know, is 125. So my factor, my base, is 5. So the cube root of 125 is 5. For number 7, I have the cube root of negative 27. Now, cube roots are a little bit different than square roots, and we can deal with negatives inside the radical symbol. We can do it with perfect squares because when we multiply 2 negatives, we get a positive, so we couldn't actually get the number inside of a square root. We can with a cube because if you have an odd number of negatives, you'll still get a negative answer. So for negative 27, that's like saying negative 3 cubed, because negative 3 times negative 3 gives me a positive 9, times negative 3 gives me the negative 27. Okay, so that's why cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. For number 8, Dylan has a planter in the shape of a cube that holds 8 cubic feet of potting soil. Solve the equation 8 equals s cubed to find the side length s of the container. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up my equation. So 8 equals s cubed, which is the equation that they gave me in the original problem. Then I want to take the cube root of both of these sides. The cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 cubed gives me 8, and the cube root of s cubed is s. So each side is 2. I can always go back and double check by saying 2 cubed. Does that actually give me 8? 2 times 2 times 2. It does, which is what I wanted to have in the first place. Alright, there are a couple of try problems below. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try out the try problems, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers together. Alright, now that you've had a chance to try out the try problems, let's go over the answers together. So, for letter H, I have the cube root of 729. Well, I can say that 729, I can do 9 cubed, which is 729. So my answer is plus or minus 9. I'm sorry, it has to be a positive 9. Because if I had negative, it would be negative. Alright, cube root of negative 64 is, I know 4 cubed is 64, so this would have to be a negative. So this is negative 4. For J, I have the cube root of 1,000. Well, 1,000 is 10 cubed. So that means J has to be 10. And for letter K, an aquarium in the shape of a cube that will hold 25 gallons of water has a volume of 3.375 cubic feet. Solve s cubed equals 3.375 to find the length of one side of the aquarium. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my equation. And then I'm going to take the cube root of both sides. The cube root of s cubed is s. And the cube root of 3.375 is 1.5. You can always double check this. You can double check by doing 1.5 cubed. So this is 1.5 times 1.5 times 1.5. And when you do this, you will get 3.375. All right, on the next page, you have this cool little graphic, cube root or square root day. So it's just a lot of fun things. April 4th, 2016 was square root day. So it's just a bunch of cute little cartoons. Then you should also have this page, root tables. So this actually gives you the square roots up to 50, and perfect cubes and perfect cube roots up to 1,000. Okay, so both positive and negative for cube roots. And that is the end of Chapter 1, Lesson 8.